Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 9th, 2023. Can we have the roll?
Andre Spinelli.
Here.
Jared Gardner.
Here.
Radhika Krishna. Here. Jim Winchester.
Here.
Scott Pullis.
Here.
Jeff Ron.
Here.
Brandy Eber.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the minutes from December 5th and December 12th. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Pullis, seconded by Commissioner Winchester. Any objection? Okay, seeing and hearing none, that motion passes. Moving on to disclosures, Commissioner Pullis.
No disclosures?
Commissioner Winchester.
No disclosures.
Commissioner Krishna.
No disclosures.
Commissioner Spinelli.
No disclosures.
Commissioner Ron. Now you're committed, Commissioner Ron.
I am. By a vote of the audience. Although not a public hearing, in case 2023-0008, item 5A on our agenda, for the record, I am a parent of students in the ASD, as other commissioners may be. More directly, my current children's students do go to a few of the schools that are up on and nominated for projects on the CIP. I don't believe that creates a conflict, but just did want to disclose that. And I'm a proud parent. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ron. I guess I also do not see a risk of a conflict given that context. And if no one in the commission raises an objection, then I think we can go ahead and proceed. Okay, seeing none, we'll continue. Commissioner Eber?
None to disclose.
Thank you, Commissioner Eber. And no disclosures for myself either. Next up is the consent agenda. We have 4 resolutions for approval. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Krishna, seconded by Commissioner Winchester. Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Brings us to the regular agenda case 2023-0008. Can we hear from staff?
Yes, Tom Davis, Long Range Planner with the Planning Department. Planning and Zoning Commission has requested to review and forward to the Assembly and School Board its recommendations regarding the annual update to the Anchorage School District 6-year capital improvement plan. This is Planning and Zoning Commission case 2023-0008. And this annual update is for the school district's years of July 2023 through June 30, 2029. After the Planning and Zoning Commission reviews and discusses the CIP, its recommendations will be forwarded to the Anchorage Assembly and the School Board for consideration and approval. The powers and responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Commission to make its review and recommendations to the Assembly and School Board for annual updates to the ASD Capital Improvement Program is set out in Title 21, Section 21.02.030C2, and that's part of the Planning and Zoning Commission's roles and responsibilities established in the code. For the packet in front of you, you have a staff recommendation of approval in the memorandum from the Planning Department, and that lays over 3 attachments. The first is a memo from the school district's Capital Planning and Construction Department to the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's attachment A. And attachment B is the capital improvement plan for approval. In particular of interest in that attachment B. Pages 12 and 13 contain the tables 1 and 2 showing the proposed project, CIP projects list. And then thirdly, for the Commission's consideration is a draft resolution that the Commission may modify as needed. and that is Attachment C, Draft Planning and Zoning Commission Resolution addressed to the Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tom. And I guess just for clarification, is there a further presentation that would need to be made? I know we heard from Mr. Morris earlier. I don't know if he was planning to speak any further.
I don't think we have any further presentation in addition to the work session. We appreciate your time at the work session. This is a non-public hearing item, I should have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess for the commission, if you have any questions, I think remaining from the work session, we can ask them now. Otherwise, we could just move forward with a motion. Commissioner Winchester.
I move in case 2023-0008 to recommend to the Anchorage Assembly approval of the proposed Anchorage School District's 6-year capital improvement plan, July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2029, subject to the findings of staff as shown on page 4 of the memorandum.
Thank you, Commissioner Winchester. Your motion is seconded by Commissioner Ron. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Well, we were brought up to current status with the work session earlier by the school district. We appreciate the time that they took to kind of present their findings to us. It's been a tough few years for them, and I think the plan as laid out is compliant with 2040 land use plan, and for that reason I intend to support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Winchester. Okay, seeing nobody else in the queue, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Eber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Seven votes in favor, that motion passes. That brings us to our public hearing item. Before we get to that, I'll read the procedure by which the public may speak to the commission at its meetings. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, receive 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. receive 5 minutes. Individuals receive 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. Any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the commission's decision made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 2103.050A.4.a. Commission recommendations to the Anchorage Assembly are not appealable. Following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may, within 20 days, file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with section 2103.050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. The public hearing item that's pending is 2022-0127. This is postponed from December, and I know we previously heard a report from staff, but I don't know if you had anything staff planned to present further on this.
Yes, Chair Gardner and the Commission. I just wanted to quickly review the process and the Commission's role, and then just reiterate the Department's recommendation. So this is a Design Study Report, or DSR. The Commission first saw this to complete the first step of the Context Sensitive Solutions, or CSS review, in March of 2021. This DSR is the second step. After the Planning and Zoning Commission's review, the project would go for the third step of review to the Urban Design Commission for a review of the plans in hand, which is a bit further along in the design than the DSR. The Commission had postponed their deliberations from December 5th so that a public hearing may be held tonight before a decision is made. Title 21 specifies the Planning and Zoning Commission will review and act to approve with conditions, or return the application to the project management team for additional work. Since the staff report was written, the Planning Department has received comments. They are in opposition from the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, or GBOS, and also some members of the public. No comments expressed explicit support for another alternative, but the comments expressed some concern with the size and scope of the project, wetlands impacts, emergency access, and access to the businesses in the mall. The primary decision of the Commission for the DSR is of the alternatives, and there are 13 topic areas to be included but not limited to in the Commission's deliberations. I had written out these topic areas. I won't say all of them as they're in the staff report, but just for the record, the 13 topic areas include existing conditions, design standards, compliance with Title 21, long and short-term impacts for land use and right-of-way acquisition, utility and infrastructure impacts, maintenance, environmental constraints, non-motorized access, public involvement, and cost. Based on these 13 topic areas and the information included in the DSR, the Department recommends approval of the refined recommended concept level alternative that is based on Alternative 7 that is identified in the CSS Design Study Report for this case, subject to conditions 1 through 5. This alternative would provide a trumpet interchange with a southbound on-ramp and northbound off-ramp for the Seward Highway and a roundabout at the Alyeska Highway and Gold Avenue intersection. Reviewing agencies were supportive of the alternative and none expressed opposition. This separates major highway traffic from local traffic, manages access to accommodate future growth, and strikes a balance in considering environmental and viewshed impacts with safety and access impacts. The Alaska Department of Transportation and their representatives are here tonight to speak to the project. As tonight is a public hearing, members of the public and organizations will also have time to comment on the project. Thank you, and that concludes my summary and additional information for the staff report.
Thank you very much. We have Commissioner Krishna in the queue with a question.
Yeah, I have a question about the process and timelines. And you had mentioned that after this Planning and Zoning Commission hearing and any decision that the Commission makes tonight, the next step would be to go before the UDC. My question is about preferred alternative choice. Is it necessary for the Commission to provide a recommendation or an approval on the preferred alternative before we can proceed from, I believe we're at the 35% design mark right now. What happens if that consensus is not reached?
Yeah, Commissioner Krishna, and through the chair, I'd researched Title 21 and just confirmed the interpretation of this section. So I'd mentioned those three options that the Commission has to make their decision. So it's approve with conditions, which is what the Planning Department recommends, or return the application for additional work. Code states that concerns and conditions raised by the Commission shall be specifically addressed in subsequent submittals. So you don't necessarily have to, depending on what action you want to take, you don't necessarily have to have agreement on an alternative that the Commission prefers. You could instead raise specific concerns and conditions that you would like to see addressed in subsequent submittals. I have some additional things I could say on code for guidance on decisions, but I'll wait until I guess the commission has more specific questions if you have an idea of what motion you would like to make.
May I ask a follow-up question? Sure, my question is, will any concerns raised tonight be answered before the Planning and Zoning Commission, or will the process automatically move forward so they'll be answered at the next stage before the UDC?
Through the chair, Commissioner Krishna. So that was the second part of Title 21. So code says that no agency may proceed with a project that does not conform to the applicable commission's decisions. However, it does say if the agency furnishes the commission and the assembly a written statement of the reasons for their decision to proceed at least 30 days before implementing the decision, they could still move forward. So I guess if the commission, I guess, let's say would return the application, or they would add to conditions or concerns, those would have to be addressed at the UDC submission, but it wouldn't necessarily stop the project from moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have anything pending at the moment. Did you say there was a representative from the DOT?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So I think we can just go ahead and proceed with the standard timeline for a public hearing if you'd like to present. Thank you.
All right.
So you'll have 10 minutes and you're welcome to reserve some for rebuttal.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Okay, fantastic. Good evening, commissioners. Good to see you again. My name is Taryn Olesonyell, Oleson-Yelle. I'm a planner and public engagement coordinator with R&M Consultants representing DOT. I'm joined here by our DOT project manager, Christina Huber, as well as multiple members of our design team, including Juan Lee, who presented to you last month, Ryan Gensel, and Joseph Horzowski, who are the civil engineers and our lead designers for this project. When DOT started this project in 2019, it was at the charge of a resolution passed by the Girdwood Board of Supervisors a year prior, requesting that DOT improve this intersection. This was because, as quote, the Seward Highway is a critically important connection which continues to present major safety concerns for fatal and non-fatal accidents at an increasingly congested and unsafe interchange. We are trying to solve these safety issues first and foremost, and secondarily, we're working to improve the connection between Anchorage, the Kenai Peninsula Borough, and local access to the community of Girdwood. The left turning conflicts at the existing intersection are the primary safety concern for all users of this intersection. And that is what we prioritized in addressing through our alternatives development and alternative analysis. This intersection improvements project and the recommended preferred alternative address two primary themes. The first is that it improves the safety and preserves the functionality of the Seward Highway, which is a national highway that is the main connection and only connection between Anchorage and the Kenai Peninsula Borough, which is home to more than 400,000 residents combined. The goal of the national highway is to move people and freight efficiently and safely. The second goal of this intersection improvements project, or major theme, is that it provides and improves safety to local access to the Girdwood community and businesses along the Alyeska Highway. We feel that this is well accommodated through the proposed roundabout in our recommended alternative, as well as the frontage road connecting the old town of Girdwood and the Girdwood Station Mall. We understand and are sympathetic to the issues expressed by members of the Girdwood community. We have worked through conceptual designs and analysis of more than 11 intersection alternatives and have undergone multiple iterations of the alternative that is before you tonight. This proposed alternative and all of its iterations, we have strived to address and alleviate as many of the concerns as feasible that have been expressed by residents. Since we submitted the DSR application to you, we have continued to work with the Girdwood Board of Supervisors and have had 2 meetings with them and have optimized the alternative. It is now shifted farther to the north, closer to closer to Anchorage, to try to minimize viewshed impacts and to reduce the footprint as much as practicable while still complying with all safety requirements and standards that are set by the FHWA for funding for this project. Our team has worked hard to produce a design that solves the problems at the intersection with as minimum social, economic, and environmental impacts as practicable, and we feel that we've achieved that through this design. The lands around the intersection are of three types: residential, which is the old Girdwood town site; commercial, which is confined within the Girdwood Station Mall; and undeveloped lands, which do include wetlands. There's nothing that can be done to significantly improve the issues at this intersection as it exists today without impacting one or more of those resources. We have made the tentative decision that confining the impacts to undeveloped lands as much as possible is the best way to minimize impacts to the existing community and the environment. As we go through the NEPA process, impacts will be assessed, and we will work with the community and regulatory agencies to determine the most appropriate mitigation. There's no doubt that change proposed through this recommendation and for this intersection is a big one. We recognize that. But we do feel that this change is one that would provide a safer, more practicable, and less stressful experience for drivers in the short, mid, and long term as everywhere in Southeast Central Alaska continues to grow. I'll keep our presentation short, as you've heard most of this a month ago, and I'll conclude with our agreement with planning staff's recommendations made in the report, and we'd like to thank you for your consideration, and we're here and happy to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, I will yield the rest of my time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Can I just ask real quick, I might have missed, I thought you said that in recent discussions with the Board of Supervisors, it led to two changes in the original submission. One was that it was shifted slightly to the north, and what was the second piece?
The footprint got slightly smaller, so it moved closer to the existing alignment of the Seward Highway.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Spinelli.
Can you point us to, I think I might have found it, but can you point us to where that is in the packet?
The refined recommended alternative?
Yeah.
It should be the last attachment under the, hold on, sorry, let me flip through our pages. Page number?
I see
66 of the packet. Oh, 166, thank
Okay.
you. That's why we brought the whole team here tonight.
And Toadstool is eliminated, or it's emergency maintenance access only?
It's emergency access only. So originally, we had removed that connection as part of the initial design, and then through discussions with first responders and the neighborhood, we did put it back in, but we strongly feel that the preferred alternative will provide ease of access to the point where people shouldn't need to use Toadstool on a regular basis to enter and exit the highway. The more driveways we have and access points closer to the intersection, the more dangerous the intersection becomes because it adds conflicting points and vehicles moving at varying speeds, which is where we get a lot of those safety concerns. So Commissioner Spinelli, to answer your question, we put a gate in there so that in the event of an emergency, that could be opened up as needed.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you. Through the chair, a question about a few statements in the alternatives analysis memo around traffic analysis. Statement in question that I have a question about is the study intersection has a crash rate below average for similar facilities. And then the author goes on to talk about projected increases in traffic and expectation around decreasing gaps. Is there somebody from the applicant's team that can help me understand those statements and what's going on versus what's potentially anticipated?
So I'm Ryan Getzel, Goentzel. The projected traffic increases that we're analyzing right now is that, you know, this is kind of a long-term solution. So we're looking 20, 50, potentially 100 years out. So with with that increase in traffic in the Matsu Borough and Anchorage and the Kenai and Girdwood, it's going to add more stress to the highway, more stress to Alyeska. So that's, you're going to see a longer stream of cars, which means people will tend to take chances to get into those gaps, and that leads to higher potential for crashes and for, T-bone crashes and things like that. So with an increase in traffic, you will tend to see higher potential for crashes.
Thank you for that forward-looking commentary. How about existing conditions and that statement around crash rate below average for similar facilities? Can you help me understand that? There's some, for greater context here and the record, there's discussion around the establishment of a safety corridor and conjecture that that may have had a positive impact on this particular intersection. So just any additional commentary to that effect I would appreciate.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Ryan. There is a lower crash rate than some comparable intersections in terms of fatal crashes, but we do have a pretty high rate of like fender bender type crashes and other crashes around the intersection that may not have been recorded as directly attributed to the intersection itself, if that hopefully makes a little bit of sense. Part of it is also attributed to the fact that it is a high stress intersection for drivers, so there is awareness that you're approaching an area of high predictability. And so we're assuming because of that, people do tend to slow down, they're paying attention a little bit more, and while that is a good thing, we are seeing, especially during peak hours in the summertime, and people are not familiar with this intersection, again, increased risky behavior, which really adds to the safety concerns of that intersection and the driveways that are within close proximity to it. This is also a unique opportunity where the issues and the safety concerns have been acknowledged for many, many years, and DOT is responding in a way that we're able to be proactive instead of necessarily waiting for those fatalities to occur to make it standard.
Thank you for those responses. May I follow up just briefly on that point? Is there additional work that the team could do to quantify what it is that's being stated here? Or maybe that work has already been done and I'm just not seeing it in terms of modeling the projected increase in traffic volume resulting in a decrease in gaps to actually make the case. Has that work been done or could it be done?
I don't think we're there yet, but it is one thing we're going to be looking to do, I think this year, is looking at our alternative and seeing what that does to the traffic around the mall and the highway, and see what our alternative and how that affects traffic volumes and congestion and safety.
Commissioner Polis.
Can you speak one more time? I know we've talked about it before, about the environmental impacts. It's my recollection that this was like one of the least impactful because of just its footprint on the actual wetland areas is smaller than fat, wide tracts of road running through it. Can you speak about that one more time? Because that's one of the major complaints, is that it's a huge environmental impact, but footprint-wise, it sounds like it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, so the two leading alternatives that we had was the Trumpet and the Diamond. Those were the two alternatives that kind of solved the solution or solved the problem that we had that, when you apply federal highway standards for a 65-mile-an-hour highway, those requirements get pretty big when you start applying that stuff. So when we took a look at applying those to our design, going through all of our alternatives, this alternative 7, we kind of shrunk down. We didn't go to the minimum. We bumped it up just a little bit. So going through all that analysis and applying all that stuff, you kind of get what we have here is kind of the least impactful alternative while still solving all the problems that exist there today, with traffic congestion and safety. This alternative is free flow. There's no stops. All of it is merging, kind of things like that. No stoplights, no stop signs, things like that. So that was kind of our goal, was to do that and keep it free flow and keep it as small as possible while still applying all the federal standards.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. We did go through 3 iterations of the diamond alternative as well to really be comparing apples to apples. So we brought that diamond interchange alternative to the same level as the preferred, the trumpet interchange before you today, and we did a numbers comparison, and the total footprint of the trumpet, which is our preferred recommended, is about 40 acres, with 18 of those on the water side of the highway, so in those wetlands. The total footprint of the diamond is 46 acres, with about 24 acres on the water side of the highway. And again, that's because that diamond required a longer stretch of fill as opposed to the trumpet, which is more just in one place.
Commissioner Krishna.
Yeah, I have 2 clarifying questions. One is to follow on to that question. So the current footprint would be 0, and we're comparing that to 18 additional acres on the water side. Is that true?
No, so
Okay.
the trumpet alternative would take 18 acres of wetland on
Okay.
the water side. Yep.
Okay. But for example, a signalized intersection or something, we'd be comparing that 18 acres to a footprint of 0. Is that correct?
I don't know that we've done enough analysis to say, because I know that some widening would need to be done even in the event of a stoplight. So I can't give you an exact number, but it would be less. However, again, just going for the safety improvements that we really set out to achieve here and maintaining the functionality of the highway and safety of all users, we were trying to eliminate those left turn movements, and a stop on the highway would still be facilitating many of them.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one more clarifying question, which is on page 169 of our packet. We have a comment from traffic engineering, which says, traffic engineering has read the draft design study report and recommends approval as submitted. Proposed alternative 2 addresses the concerns of the intersection and provides safer access. What are they referring to? Are they referring to conceptual alternative 2 or something else?
Sorry, Commissioner Krishna, could you reread those comments for me? I seem to have misplaced that page of the packet.
Okay, yeah, it's on page 169. It's our comment from the municipality's traffic engineering department. They're referring to a proposed alternative 2, and I couldn't quite tell what they're referring to.
Yeah, I believe that is a part of the initial set of 11 alternatives that we looked at. And so alternative 2 was, Ryan so nicely flips the pages for me. I believe it was the signalized.
Point of information, I can help answer that too. For a point of information, so I think they may have had a typo in here, to be honest. Traffic engineering did attend the pre-application conference for this case, so they were aware of the preferred alternative, which I believe is based in alternative 7, at least as it's written in the DSR. And they commented during that pre-application conference that they had no objection. So I believe it's a typo based on my communication with traffic engineering. I suppose perhaps I should have contacted them to ask them to fix their comment, but I just wanted to add that point of information in looking at this.
Okay, thank you.
Question for you. I feel like I recall seeing in one of the comments, maybe even before, some concerns about what was originally understood as kind of the recommended alternative and then what turned into the modified. And so my understanding is that, we started with alternative 7 and then that developed into what's being proposed now. Can you just speak briefly to the kind of the timeline of that process of like when it went from 7 to this current design? And I recognize that conceptually, I guess they have the same kind of trumpet concept, but visually I think they look quite differently to perhaps kind of a layperson who's not familiar with design elements. And so maybe you could speak to kind of what that transition looked like from alternative 7 to what's currently proposed.
So the initial alternative 7 was we kind of went through kind of just people just spitballing, like, hey, let's do this, let's try this, let's try this. So we had 11 alternatives. We just get kind of a basic concept of what these things will look like. And then through public open houses and meeting with the old Girdwood folks, we kind of whittled those down to, I think, the top three. The trumpet, the diamond, and I think there was another one on there. After we took those first 11, we went through the federal highway standards, and we applied all the, for this speed of a road, this is what you need to have for this, and this. And that's how that size kind of grew from like a small thing to what it is, kind of what it is today. So we presented those to the public again, and then through DOT comments and agencies, we further refined that alternative to shift it more toward Anchorage, and even to minimize the footprint again. So it's kind of an iterative process of going from like, hey, just throw everything out there, see what sticks, and then applying federal standards to make it actually function and work.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Follow up on previous commissioners' questions around environmental aspects. Has the department issued their finding of determination as to what level of environmental review will be required for the project? Will it be a CADEX, an EA, or an EIS?
We have not gotten final decision yet. We're currently in that process of producing the first environmental document, and we're prepared to go through the NEPA process at whatever level is determined through that.
Okay, slightly confused by your response there. If you're preparing the document, then I would think you'd have some understanding as to whether or not it would be a CADEX or an EA. Maybe someone else from the team or the department could enlighten me. Thank you.
The document you're referring to might be the class of action determination, which determines what the class of action is. We have a draft class of action determination. It's not approved yet. There's still discussion amongst the department as to whether it should be a CE or an EA.
Thank you for that. I think, you having heard the questions around environmental considerations, that's an important clarification I appreciate.
Yes.
Is there anticipation as to when that will transition from draft to final?
I wish I could tell you I understood how the timelines work.
Sure, that's fair.
On environmental questions.
That's fair.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay, thank you.
Could I speak to one of the earlier questions about how Alternative 7 changed? One of the main reasons, may I?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I just want, before I forget, can you just state your name for the record? So that we've
my
got
name
it?
is Christina Huber, Huber.
Okay, thank you.
So I think visually the biggest change when you look at Alternative 7 and then our recommended alternative is that the Alyeska Highway has shifted. And that's really a big part of why there's a bigger footprint. And the reason we made that shift is not because it was required in order to do a trumpet, but because we started looking at how can we least impact the access to the mall, and we were stymied. And we decided we'd just move the road away from the mall in order to avoid having to make significant changes to the access to the mall. And that, I guess that feature of the design would probably be included in any other alternative that we would go with. For that same reason, we have that same issue no matter what we do at the intersection.
Okay, I don't see anything pending. Thank you. We've got about 5.5 minutes for rebuttal, and we'll go ahead and open it up. Testimony from the public. So when you come forward, if you could introduce yourself and state whether you're speaking or testifying as an individual on behalf of an organization.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Wingard, and I am here speaking on behalf of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. I am the road supervisor for the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. So I believe that you have our letter of objection. I just wanted to address a couple points. First of all, I wanted to thank the DOT. Both the public and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors really appreciate some aspects of this design, including the reworking of the railroad bridge and the potential for solving a trail issue underneath that would really help us with the Iditarod Trail. So I want to definitely acknowledge that some great work has been done on this. However, I would also like to address a couple points that were brought up. In particular, I'd like to talk about this issue of environmental impact. When we had our meetings with the DOT, we explained to them that the way they're measuring environmental impact is a little different than the way Girdwood measures it. And because the diamond design, the impact of that is more parallel to the highway, and so is less impactful on the area that Girdwood loves. When you look at the wetlands and the natural spaces around this, you're not going to hear any, I haven't heard any complaints so far about the extension to the direction of Toadstool. So we're not complaining about development, we're not complaining about road extension here. We understand that that's going to open up land that we would love to see commercial development happen. However, this giant loop that we feel is unsuited both to Girdwood and the environment is very problematic for us, and we view it to be actually antithetical to this idea that somehow or another social, environmental, and economic impacts are being minimized. This trumpet design, out of all of the designs we saw, is actually one of the largest in terms of social, environmental, and economic impacts. I know that you have received letters of concern from people in the mall. The businesses in the mall are not happy with this plan. Now, I do understand that there are some practical considerations there. But I think what is a little bit trickier to understand is Girdwood's idea about this, the view shed and the environmental impact of this giant trumpet into the wetlands is, from our community viewpoint, much more environmentally impactful than something that's parallel along the road. And in particular, we find that we're all doing a whole lot of somersaults trying to get to a single lane bridge at 65 miles an hour over Glacier Creek. And since the long-range plan, as we understand it, is to have this highway be divided, if we really want to be forward-thinking here, then it's going to have to be divided. It's better to have it divided wherever we can. Let's be forward-thinking. And let's not build something that's more suited to LA than to Girdwood. Socially, this doesn't fit the entrance to a town of 2,000 people, and it doesn't fit Girdwood character, and it doesn't fit the tourist impact that we're looking for. We're looking for small town, in the mountains, ski town, not here's your little section of LA. Again, we do understand the considerations. I was in the meetings with DOT. We understand the federal highways considerations that got us here. But we think that more creative thinking, and particularly, hopefully, some look at what places like Colorado have done. There have been towns that have asked for exemptions to some of these rules so that you don't have to permanently negatively impact both the town and the environment to just meet federal safety standards that were designed for much bigger communities. So, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I think we may have at least one question for you, Commissioner Krishna.
Yeah. Does the Girdwood Board of Supervisors have a preferred alternative or some options within the 11 conceptual options that you believe are better suited to Girdwood?
Yes, Girdwood is not convinced that the diamond design is not workable. And then also in the course of doing more research, we have found that what some of the communities in Colorado did was ask for exceptions and made the roundabout work. The roundabout idea was Girdwood's original hope for this. Now, I understand the concerns, again, around traffic, having to slow down. A lot of this comes down to this business of trying to keep the traffic at 65. And that's what we're hoping that creative thing would lead to some exemptions for, because at 65 miles an hour, the roundabout doesn't work.
So just so I'm understanding, GBOS is supportive of the diamond alternative
Yes.
and the roundabout alternative?
And the roundabout alternative, yes.
And is unsupportive of the other alternatives?
Is not, well, in specifics, not supportive of the trumpet design.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and we're not necessarily throwing everything else out.
Thank you, understood.
Sure. Is that it?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience looking to testify? Okay, seeing no one coming forward, I think we do have at least one.
I'm just going to turn the mic off before I
Okay, sure.
start the phone dialing. Thank you for turning the mic off. So there's 3 for phone testimony. I'll dial the first one. Where's she?
Colorado Fire Department, this is Dixon. How can I help you?
Hi, may I please speak with Michelle Weston? I'm calling from the Planning and Zoning Commission for her testimony on case 2022-0127.
Okay, I think our chief is not in at the moment. I can give you an email number. An email. Or would you like me to have her reach out to you?
I will dial once more. There's 2 other people I can call, and then I can call back one more time. But if she's not available, then she would just miss the time for public testimony.
Oh, okay. So I think she would be. Is there a number I can have her call back, or just let her know that you'll call again, or because she's not at the station at the moment?
No, unfortunately not. I'm with this is the Planning and Zoning Commission. I can try dialing one more time, but if no one picks up, then we would just skip her testimony.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you. I'll try back in a little bit. All right, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Disconnect. 1-804-615.
This is Carolina.
Hi, Carolina. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission calling for public testimony in case 2022-0127. Are you testifying as an individual or representing a group?
I'm testifying as an individual.
Okay, individuals are given 3 minutes to testify. You will now have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Please state your full name for the record, and you can begin.
Thank you. My name is Carolina, spelled like Karolina. My last name is Pavic, and I live in Girdwood at 174 Alta Drive. And I am calling to express my concerns about the scope of this project. I have several concerns, number one of which is the design of this project, in my personal opinion, is very over-engineered. And the concerns, the safety concerns regarding access, making a left-hand turn out of Girdwood and even getting back on the highway. I do recognize that there are safety concerns, but I do not believe that the design of this project addresses those adequately. In my personal opinion, I do not think that the traffic route as planned is necessary for the problem that we have in Girdwood, and I believe that a different design should be explored and be implemented rather than the cloverleaf design and roundabout. And I do not think that spending nearly $70 million to construct this project is going to accomplish what we think it's going to accomplish. Girdwood is a 2-lane access point to the resort. Most of our roads are still unpaved, and our traffic is only going to be congested at a different point. Rather than being congested at the gas station, it's going to be congested at that roundabout. It's, in my opinion, going to be a cause for more accidents, and the cost of the project is exceeding what I believe is necessary for our community. And I do want to thank everybody for involving the good community and for being transparent, but I do not believe that this project as designed should be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Hi, you've reached Shirley Dirkshe. Mountain Minds Matter. Please leave your name.
Hi, Girdwood Fire, this is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission calling for public testimony in case 2022-0127. Are you testifying as an individual or representing a group?
I am representing the Girdwood Fire Department.
Okay, organizations are given 5 minutes to testify. You will have 5 minutes to provide your testimony. Please state your full name for the record, and you can begin.
Hi, thank you, and I apologize for earlier. We have many phones and many people pick up at the same time. My name is Michelle Weston, MICHELLEWESTON, and I'm Fire Chief for Girdwood Fire and Rescue. I'd like to start off by thanking DOT for including us in the public meetings and acknowledge that the Girdwood Board of Supervisors have submitted a letter of opposition for this project. Girdwood Fire and Rescue has been providing service to this location for 63 years. We also serve as Girdwood's area command during natural disasters when our community is isolated by earthquakes, avalanches, rock slides, and severe weather. I personally have 26 years experience using this intersection almost twice a day. Our area of Turnagain Arm has severe weather events where there is zero visibility from fog or blizzard conditions and sometimes 2 feet of snow or solid ice conditions on the highway. It's a little bit different than Anchorage, so I wanted to make sure that if you weren't a person that frequents Turnagain Arm, we have definitely a different weather pattern. Also, I wanted you to know that we frequently pick up critical medical patients at the gas station who have had medical emergencies driving or being transferred to us from Whittier or Hope. All of our patients go through this intersection on the way to the hospital. I'll talk about first what we like about the project. We like that the aged bridge is being replaced. We like the direct access to old Girdwood neighborhoods. There's 52 homes there and 6 commercial businesses, and also our main CEA substation and communication towers. The staff reports talked about wells in that area. For us, that means that if the gas station catches on fire or any house there, we have to roll water in water tankers from up valley down below. So you'll see water tankers going back and forth, or through that roundabout the new roundabout to Old Girdwood to put out a fire, or the gas station. So there's no water supply for a large fire in that whole area.
We also like the fact that it possibly gives us quicker access to the Girdwood train station for train patients. And we think that hopefully that will stop. There's right now commercial tour buses that go through the residential neighborhood to try and access the train station, like large tour buses. And so I think that possibly that will prevent, and we have little kids on those streets, so I think that might be a positive thing. Now, I'll address our concerns. We acknowledge that the new design will add a bit of response time as we have to now go through a traffic circle and an overpass going south. I should stop and tell you that our service area is the Girdwood Valley. We also do respond to car accidents from Indian all the way to the municipal border, which is mile 75, and then we go up further to around mile 60. And then we also do the Portage Valley. So we spend a lot of time doing car accidents. Our concerns can be put into a number of categories: suitability for our weather conditions, access for evacuation, earthquake, and tractor-trailer traffic. Suitability for our weather. We're concerned about DOT maintenance during heavy periods of heavy snow, blizzards, heavy fog, and ice conditions, since there's now height involved with the overpass, and I'm worried about disoriented drivers. The highway is never closed, and it is easy for drivers to become, at times, completely disoriented during these severe weather events. And often, by the time people reach Girdwood, they've got driver fatigue, and they just want to get off, are looking for a safe place to get off the highway. Access for evacuation. When this project was first presented to us by the DOT planners, it had one road in, one road out. Currently, we have 3 ways to get people out of the valley or reroute people if we have something going on or a congested area due to a car accident, or sometimes like a hazmat response from a tractor trailer. And so we do not want any project that just has one road out, one road in, for 3,000 to 6,000 people in the Girdwood Valley, or those 150 residents in Old Girdwood. So we needed, and we like the fact that hopefully in the project design that you're looking at, that there's emergency access from Toadstool that's maintained 365 days a year back onto the highway. It could be gated access, but we need that access from Toadstool. And then we also additionally need that access from Main Street. And this could be gated, it needs to be plowed, but we need to be able to have a way to evacuate Old Girdwood residents, because let's face it, they're stuck between a gas station that has no good water supply if it catches on fire, and also beside beside train tracks, which carries hazardous materials. So we would like to have efficient ways, in fact, more than one, hopefully 2, ways to evacuate those residents.
Ms. Weston.
Additionally,
Ms. Weston, sorry to interrupt. That's your 5 minutes there. If you had a final point you were making, we'd be happy to hear you finish your thought.
Okay, it's gonna be one big run-on sentence. We're concerned about earthquakes and resultant tsunami issues due to the new USGS peer-reviewed study that's coming out very shortly, and also currently the tractor trailers that currently on the southbound, they usually stop and park on the side of the Seward Highway opposite the gas station in bad weather. I don't understand what the plan is for them in this new design. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. I'm probably the only person on the phone or in the room that's responded to lots of car accidents in this location.
Okay, thank you. We have at least one question for you if you'll hang on. Commissioner Krishna.
Okay.
Yes, I'll help you out here. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on your last 2 points about that you were going to talk about with the truck and trailer access and.
Oh, I think I made them, but there's a new earthquake USGS, and I believe there's some university researchers have a new study in peer review status, which talks about the earthquake and tsunami vulnerability of this area. And so I wanted to make sure that that's included in future planning for this project, because we were briefed on it, but it's not officially out yet. But I think that should factor into this because it affects this area. And then additionally, tractor-trailer traffic. We have large tractor trailers that go on the highway, and in bad weather, when they've either come down from the pass or they can't go up the pass, they stop on the Seward Highway across from the gas station and kind of, gather their mojo like everybody else that's gone through these horrific weather conditions and then stop, and then and so I'm wondering, is there still an area for them to stop or with this new design, or how that's going to work?
Thank you, Ms. Weston. And I'll just ask myself as well. It sounds like there are at least some concerns you have about just the need to fully factor in some of the considerations. You mentioned the earthquake study, and you had questions about the tractor trailer stopping. But were there alternatives that were presented that you leaned toward or felt addressed some of your concerns more than the proposed alternative? Or
I just want to make sure that everybody understands the importance of having the toadstool emergency access route maintained, because that's the way we can reroute traffic if something goes bad at that one new in and out location, right? And then additionally, the Main Street, there's no access now from Main Street, so I'm just wondering how all this traffic is going to go through the one-way in without having that two-way in. Like I know it's going to be different for the people that are in cardiac arrest that are in the back of an ambulance coming from Whittier or Hope that now might have to go through and up around to get into Tesoro so we can do a patient transfer. But I am hoping that it all works out, because we also have, and then also know that a lot of those people that come down the highway, they might be having an emergency event and they will make it to Girdwood while they're talking to 911. So I just, all those people factor into this new design.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Hi, this is Michelle.
Hi, you've reached Shirley.
That is the end of the phone testimony.
Thank you. I saw at least one new person walk in. I don't know if there's anyone else here that wanted to testify in person. I think there's supposed to be a green sticker where, there we go.
Yes, thank you for the mention. My name is Marcela Peña, and I am not familiar with the subject, shy of having arrived within the last some minutes. And I'm grateful for the testimony that I've been able to hear, and grateful for the resources I was able to pull. And would just love to endorse the idea of thinking about it more and not quite committing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one further testify, you have 5 minutes, 33 seconds for rebuttal.
Right, thank you. I'd just like to speak to a couple of the points that were made during public testimony. First and foremost, I just want to express that we as the design team are not the authority on which wetlands are considered more valuable than others, and I'm not sure that the Girdwood community is considered that authority as well. We leave that up to the NEPA process and the Army Corps of Engineers to give us that determination, and they may agree, and that might be part of the environmental process, but at this stage in the game, we feel that the significant safety benefits of the Trumpet interchange are worth pursuing moving forward. I would also like to add that in terms of the size of this intersection and whether or not this type of interchange is urban or not, we have these intersections throughout other areas of our state. A comparable one is the one off the Old Glen Highway and the parks. That interchange, if you're familiar with that, right before the Kinnick Bridge as you're traveling towards the Mat-Su Valley. It's a similar design, it is significantly larger, and it serves a fewer number of residents in the Old Glen area. There's been a lot of research done that safe access is good for business. We know that if there are less conflict points, sufficient signage to hopefully alert people of upcoming exits off of the highway, that will also entice people to stop and visit more because there's a very clear one-way traffic flow to make those visits to Girdwood, which we all know is a very popular destination. The free-flowing movements of the Trumpet Interchange are, again, a huge bonus for reducing conflict points, and we also think that this should provide a benefit for emergency response as well. You don't have to worry about a stop intersection. You don't have to worry about a potential T-bone for people who don't see lights on. You'd be able to make a free right. If there's a response from Whittier coming in to make that transfer at the Girdwood Station Mall, they would have a free right lane to exit the Seward Highway and continue right as a free turn down into the Girdwood Station Mall without any additional stopping or yielding. We definitely considered the weather events consideration. We do recognize that Turnagain Arm has significant weather patterns of its own. Intersection lighting is proposed as part of this alternative to help make sure that people are aware of the route that they are traveling. And again, the Trumpet Interchange with its free flow, we're hoping actually makes this easier when weather is bad because you don't have to stop. You stay in the lane that you're traveling on and follow the white lines back onto the Seward Highway or off of it onto Alyeska Highway. We're also hoping that those single lanes and lack of an actual intersection makes snow plowing easier. Again, drop the plow, follow the lane you stay in, and hopefully results in less snow clearing that needs to happen in between lanes. Tractor truck trailers, that's a really great topic. We've met with the Alaska Trucking Association multiple times throughout this process and got their input at the 11 conceptual alternative phase as well as the other 2 main public review points through this process. They are in favor, and their biggest concern is actually just regarding overheight trucks. And so we have actually included an overheight access in this current plan as well, just in the event that that bridge would not be high enough for our super crazy large culverts or oversized boats that we see going down the highway. Tractor truck trailers can also be parked along that frontage road. As we currently have it designed in front of the Girdwood Station Mall, we have added significant shoulders that are specifically designed to be wide enough to accommodate tractor truck, RV, boat trailer parking and queuing, because we know that the circulation at the intersection, in the parking lot of the Girdwood Station Mall itself can be quite tricky, especially if you have a larger vehicle. The Seward Highway shoulders would also be wide enough to accommodate emergency pullovers as needed, as they would be today. Just like to remind everyone that toadstool, we are agreeing absolutely to keep that available for emergency access. And I guess one other note regarding earthquake redundancy, bridges can be scary. We definitely get that, and that is why design specs are consistently reviewed and updated, and we make sure that we are following all of those most current design requirements. And through this process, we're replacing the existing bridge on the Alyeska Highway over the railroad. That is currently not to standard. It is an over 50-year-old bridge and is actually what, engineers, please correct me if I'm wrong, might be considered the weakest point in our infrastructure at this intersection to date. So if there was a big earthquake event, if we were to not make that replacement, that would likely be the piece of infrastructure to suffer the most. With our 20 seconds left, anything else? Just again, thank you all very much. We really have worked hard to prioritize safety and try to, I know minimize is a tough word to use when we're looking at something as significant of a change as this, but we're confident in our design and hope you feel the same. Thank you.
Commissioner Winchester.
Yeah, I think it was Ryan that mentioned that all this was designed, FHA standards to 65 miles an hour. Was there look at other miles per hour, say 55, and if so, how would that change your design elements, or why yes, why no on other speeds?
Currently, the highway is through that section is 55 mile an hour posted speed, to kind of keep a corridor feel from the miles ahead, or north and south of Girdwood. Those are 65 mile an hour highways. There was a project just south of Girdwood, milepost 75 to 90. We've probably all driven that. That's 65 now. The section just before Girdwood, or just north of Girdwood, is 65. So to kind of keep a consistent speed through that section, we are pretty much set on designing it to 65.
So it was, didn't even consider what design elements 55 would make available to you, in terms of double diamond, rotary, other options at a slower speed, just because it wasn't 65, wasn't considered, or?
For the highway?
Yeah.
Not really, no. I guess one thing we have kind of come down on is kind of the ramps. Those are typically, you'd like to have them at a higher speed. You kind of go down from a 65 to a 35 to a local road. So I think those were maybe at 30 or 35, and now I think we're at 25 on those things to kind of keep the footprint smaller.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, through the chair. I've heard some testimony around, and I appreciate the commissioners that have asked the question about preference for alternatives. In the context of all the alternatives analyzed, I'm currently fixated on the alternatives evaluation matrix, fancy that, which does lay out all those alternatives in tabular format. And when I look at those weighted scores, I see two that rise to the top, and it's the trumpet interchange and the tight partial diamond. We've heard from the Girdwood Board of Supervisors that there's a definite preference against one and towards another, and yet I see the scores being fairly close, at least in comparison to all the other alternatives. What I'm not understanding is why the trumpet interchange from the applicant's perspective is so much better than what the Girdwood Board of Supervisors may want more work on and be accepting of.
I think going through, coming down to those last two alternatives, we looked at what would actually be built, like what would be the cost. We kind of more fine-tune our cost estimates, looked at, the most practical and most practicable design, footprint. And it kind of came down to, wetland impacts and cost. Those are kind of the bigger things that kind of like rose to the top. So, if we built another bridge over Glacier Creek, that would add even more millions of dollars. And then, building more over the wetlands south of the highway, that's even more of an environmental impact. We just felt that that wasn't the least impacted alternative that still solved the problem. The Alt 7 kind of was the better balance between cost, impacts, and while still solving the problems that we have.
Hi, Joe.
Joe Horsdowski, Horazdovsky. Yes, it really did come down to the diamond and the trumpet. They do somewhat similar things, but in slightly different ways. When we heard testimony as far as like rough weather and people kind of driving through with the diamond interchange, people wanting to exit off the highway would have two more intersections they would have to go through. Say if you have poor visibility, really, really driving weather, those are more conflict points they got to cross through. And it's a diamond would fix. If you have two through roads where you have to have like a four-legged interchange, that's why the diamond's a bit more common. I guess that's really all I had. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that too was there's a lot of concern about ease of access to the Girdwood Station Mall in particular, and we are removing direct access from the Seward Highway, and part of being sensitive to that is people were concerned that they won't know how to get to us. And we felt that the trumpet was a much more straightforward, like Joe just emphasized, fewer decision-making points, much easier straight shot to get there, and so that was also part of that determination. But you're right, when we were doing the initial alternatives evaluation matrix, we also updated that twice internally, which didn't make it into the packet. They were, again, close, but it came down to ease of use, less of a learner's curve for new drivers, or visitors who maybe have never been here before, environmental impact, and cost.
Commissioner Spinelli.
When you were talking about the cost difference between the trumpet and the diamond just now, were you talking about the trumpet the way it used to be or the way it is now? Because I guess the way it is now looks really expensive to me. I mean, I'm assuming you could fill a lot of wetlands and pay for the credits on that more than you could pay to fill these big areas full of gravel.
Yeah, the cost estimates were for the designs at their most built out, so what it would cost today as well. We weren't doing inflation costs.
I guess was it based on this one with the Alyeska Highway moved north, or was it based on the original, where Alyeska Highway was basically in place?
Are you talking about the matrix? The matrix?
Oh, no, you just mentioned the cost differences between the diamond and the trumpet.
It would have been the shifted one, and then I think we came up with an alternative for the diamond and had 2 roundabouts on either side of the, so we would have 3 roundabouts for that diamond alternative.
And
so just to clarify, are we talking, Commissioner Spinelli, you're referring to, I guess your question centers on like page 116, I think?
Yeah, well, there was the original trumpet, which was alternative 7, where the Alyeska Highway stayed in the location of Alyeska Highway. And then there's the new version where Alyeska Highway veers north through what I'm presuming Girdwood residents are talking about, their valuable green space or something. And I was referring to, you had mentioned the diamond being more expensive than the trumpet configuration, and I was asking, was that the old trumpet configuration or the new trumpet configuration? Because the new one looks expensive.
The new one and I guess the new one and the old were pretty similar. I mean, I think the refined, are you talking about the refined and then the one right before that one?
I guess I don't know. I'm comparing the one where Alyeska Highway was where it was, and Alyeska Highway is now north, and there's a new highway.
The diamond alternative was significantly more expensive than the trumpet.
It's for the new trumpet.
Yeah.
Shifted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. You guys are doing great. The answer is the new one. We updated both estimates in November in order to go back to the GBOS meeting and give them updated information. So we have been updating the trumpet all along. The one you had, that we originally had in the package, that's the one that we estimated at roughly 60 million. We updated the diamond for the 3rd time then, late in the fall, and came up with an estimate roughly 80 million. Both of them have the shift of the Alyeska Highway in them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Polis.
I feel like there's a little disconnect in something I heard that, you guys aren't filling in the big areas in the rounding of the ramps going up, right? That stuff's all going to be untouched, some culverts to allow water to flow in and out. So, I think that's maybe some of the confusion with some of that. Some people think that whole area is getting filled or something, and it's not. To me, it seems pretty obvious. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, the chair. Former commissioner's comments I think are important to me, and I want to make sure for the record that the design team and applicant can commit one way or the other. So help me understand, to the extent that you can, understanding we're limited in design detail, but are we talking, pier foundation for the majority of the newly constructed Trumpet area? Because the example previously given of Old Glen Highway, it's been a while since Saturday, since I drove up there, and there's an awful lot of, I think, filled up embankment, and it's a slightly different design concept than what I was understanding was just discussed. So I'm confused. Provide what details you can about the proposed design.
We haven't really gone through all of the geotechnical kind of alternatives that would be presented for that, filling in that area. It is pretty challenging, there is suspect to, earthquakes and liquefaction. So that's, further down the road and, pretty quickly here on determining what would be the best alternative to solidify that ground so that that ground doesn't sink. We've been looking at one alternative that was done, I think, on the Parks Highway, that was done, to kind of shore up the parks. I think it was the Glen, from that earthquake we had in 2018. We're kind of looking at that method and kind of seeing if that can be applied here. So we're exploring options to geotechnically to make that ground stable.
So what might help me just now is this 18 acres, that's permanent fill that's anticipated, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
It might be helpful to note that, people kind of look at the aerial view of the cloverleaf and assume that it's all very, very high. It's actually ramped up, and you use that ramp to kind of slow traffic naturally, and as they go around the radius, a lot of the grade as it kind of goes out is going to be at like similar grade to the existing highway and even the shifted highway, and then it's only at the end that it climbs up to go up over the Alyeska Highway. So it's easy to picture it all as massive embankment. Not all of it will be.
Commissioner Krishna.
I'm sorry, just to understand, during the previous exchange with Commissioner Spinelli, when we were talking about diamond, we were talking about alternative 9 tight diamond, not alternative 11 diamond. I believe that this all started when Commissioner Ron wanted to point out that alternative 9, which is labeled tight diamond, was the second highest scoring alternative. So I just wanted to make sure that the subsequent exchange was referring to that alternative.
The tight diamond, we looked at that, and it still had conflict points with the bridge and that on and off ramp there. So it didn't really solve the best, it didn't really solve the solution in the best way possible that alternative 7 did. It still isn't totally free flow. Like alternative 7 is still completely free flow. Additionally, Alt 9 has a retaining wall, which, is another kind of a weak point in design. You want to eliminate walls as much as possible, and so getting away from that, alternative 7 is a better alternative for that. Another thing too is the wall is not cheap. It's going to be pretty tall and it's going to be pretty long.
One other thing would be, at the point of this alternative, not all vehicles like turning movements and, complete and total design as you move forward, they weren't all looked at, so the footprint would likely even grow further from there just to accommodate the type of vehicles that need to use it. And like Ryan said, the retaining walls pose a maintenance issue, a safety issue. It was, just one of the many things that kind of went into it.
Thank you.
So no questions pending at the moment. I guess thank you for your rebuttal. We'll go ahead and officially close the public hearing at this point. You don't have to stand up there, but if questions come up, we know where to go. Thank you. All right, with that closed, I guess what's the will of the body on this one? Commissioner Polis.
I'll get us started. I move in case 2022-0127 to approve the refined recommended concept level alternative identified in the context-sensitive solutions design study report for the Seward Highway and Alyeska Highway intersection improvement project, subject to conditions 1 through 5 shown on pages 7 and 8 of the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Polis. Your motion is seconded by Commissioner Winchester. Commissioner Polis, would you like to speak to your motion?
Out loud, I guess so. You know, I've been sleeping on this one for a couple weeks now. I got this packet a couple weeks ago, and I've thought about it, and I reread it in the last week, and you know, I have a lot of feelings about how Girdwood feels about this. It's kind of polar opposites of what the design team is proposing, but in breaking down the big complaints that I hear, such as environmental impact, safety, cost, and access, in my professional experience, I feel all this stuff is pretty much addressed by what the design team has proposed as their preferred alternative. I could go a lot further into detail on that, but it would take a while. And so I guess I'd just say that, you know, in my opinion, I think they've met the environmental concerns, safety impacts, and all the above stuff we discussed. And my last ending note is that this is a highway, not a small town community that, you know, I get that the community's right there, but the point of a highway is to have high-speed movement of stuff through the area. And, you know, I just think the definition of a highway is what they're trying to do. And, you know, I feel for the town of Girdwood, but I just feel like they've hit the safety concerns and environmental concerns with what they proposed. So that's why I intend to support the motion.
Commissioner Krishna.
Sure, I'll go next, and I agree this has been an exceptionally hard case. I don't feel that I can support the motion as presented, not necessarily even because of the points that Commissioner Polis brought up. I actually do believe that there might be some version of the proposed alternative that ends up being the correct option. I'm coming at it from a slightly different place where I simply don't believe I can support this project, given that we haven't heard a single community comment in favor of it, which I think speaks to the need for additional process and information and to reach an agreement with the community that feels like a democratic decision between the community for whom this is the sole access point and DOT. I'm willing to talk about additional findings that might make this move forward and hopefully reach that consensus further in the process, even if it's not at PCC. But I don't believe I can approve this motion as written in my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners, those that have already put forward their comments, I appreciate them on both ends of the spectrum, and those that land in the middle as well. That's where I currently am, is a bit in the middle, but more on the side of not supporting the motion at this time. Before further delving into where I'm at with it, I'd like to commend the applicant, the petitioner's team, and frankly, the good work that has been done. I mean, 11 alternatives for a 35% design DSR is uncommon, I think, for us to see, or at least me to see and be familiar with. Also, the amount of engagement that has already occurred has been commendable in my opinion. That said, there's still a disconnect, as a previous commissioner pointed out, between where the proposed alternative is or preferred alternative is and what the community is seeking. In reviewing this staff packet multiple times, it was a challenge for me to, I think as some of my questioning elucidated, understand why, in fact, the preferred alternative was being put forward as such. Both on the environmental side, the cost side, that information just wasn't readily tangible to me, and I'm still struggling to piece it all together. So if there is more work to be done, if that's what the commission decides, that's one of the things that I would like to see, is a more straightforward snapshot analysis of not all 11 alternatives, but those that should still be in the running moving forward at this stage, that provide me as a commissioner, and perhaps the public as well, most importantly the public as well, a better grasp on the thinking and the conclusions made. Not just a relative matrix that has factored scores and raw scores, but let's talk real cost in dollars. Let's talk, side-by-side comparison of wetland impacts. Let's talk about, view shed in a side-by-side manner, and maybe that can help the community and the petitioner get better aligned on what might work for all involved. That's enough for me for now.
Commissioner Winchester.
I think I'm at the point where I'm ready to support the motion as proposed. These things are never perfect. I would caution that we're still in the process. There's other points where things can be looked at. There's going to be permit requirements when the environmental process goes through that can kind of modify designs. So I do think that they kind of, split it down the middle between what the community was originally asking for, a safer access, and then the realities of the requirements of the funder. And I think they walked a nice line here, and then to amend the Alyeska Highway to fix that bridge in this process to kind of help bring me on. I avoid the Girdwood Mall just because I can't get in there, and so I think involved in projects that were different, like Arctic Boulevard. Everybody was against that at first, and now nobody really talks about it. So I think that it'll improve access to these businesses with the current design, the giant trumpet. Sorry.
I'll just chime in briefly for myself. I'm kind of on the fence with this one as well. I recognize that there has been a tremendous amount of work that has gone into this and discussions with the community. I think partly for the reasons Commissioner Ron touched on, I think I had some of the same concern with not really fully understanding the details of all the reasons that led to kind of the proposed design over some of the other alternatives that made it through to get kind of the final rankings there. And I wonder if some of that is maybe reflected in what we're hearing from the community and what seems to be pretty consistent opposition to this. And maybe there is a way to, I think as Commissioner Ron mentioned as well, maybe it ultimately ends up being this design or something very similar to it, but it feels to me that there's just a little bit more work to be done to kind of, if nothing else, maybe just kind of communicate all of that to the public and to me as a member of the commission, because I don't know that I quite fully grasp it, even recognizing that this is early. And I guess somewhat early in the process. And I guess that brings me to maybe a question to staff. We heard from some commissioners comments about specific things they might be interested in seeing, and is there, maybe you could walk us through kind of some options or alternatives. Were there not to be enough votes to move this forward? What are our options for kind of further work or further consideration?
Yeah, so I guess I could see two different scenarios. So, but I would say if it does move forward, then a condition of approval could be added to look into specific issues. If it does not move forward and it's sent back, I would state in your deliberations the specific reasons why. I think I've been jotting down notes, so I do think if it is voted down, a couple of commissioners have done that. They've touched upon, looks like viewshed wetlands cost. I would try to state specific issues or things that you want the project team to go back and work on.
And I guess procedurally, I mean, if it's a no vote, does that trigger some process as opposed to a delay pending responses to specific concerns?
Yeah, that's Chair Gardner, that's a good question. It could still move forward to the Urban Design Commission, whether or not the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval or not. Looking at code, I suppose an extra thing it would require is it says that this piece where an agency cannot move forward with a project if it does not conform to the applicable commission's decisions, unless they furnish a written statement of the reasons at least 30 days before construction. So if this is voted down, it could still move to Urban Design Commission and through the process. However, before any construction could be done, the agency would have to provide a written statement of the reasons why it proceeded in a direction different from the commission 30 days before construction. If anyone has their code books, it's for me it's page 3-87. It's in chapter 3 of Title 21, where it goes over procedures for street and trail review. It's number 6, under B, letter B.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Evers, sorry, I was looking around. Go ahead.
Okay, I tend to agree with Commissioners Polish and Winchester. While this isn't, exactly perfect, I don't think any of the resolutions ever are exactly perfect. It does address the safety concerns that the Girdwood residents did bring forth. I feel like somebody in Girdwood requested, these concerns or the safety concerns, and it's for something to be done. And there's been, I think, a lot of work put into, 13 different options, and I trust that the appropriate regulatory agencies are going to address the environmental concerns. We're only at 35%. I mean, we still have a long ways to go before anything is official. So I think I intend to support the motion as it is.
Thank you, Commissioner Eber. I guess another question for staff, I should know this off the top of my head by now, but will we see this again at a later design stage?
Chair Gardner, no, the commission will not, unless, the only way would be some scenario where it totally changed enough where it had to go way back to the beginning and redo the DSR, but otherwise, if it's going with these 11 alternatives, in general, it would not come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anyone else pending. You all ready to vote? No, Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further process-related questions and schedules being a part of process. So this DSR is before us today as a municipal requirement as part of Title 21. And my understanding is that the report we're seeing here is well, it may be similar from, it's not the same as what DOT would typically develop in terms of their 35, 65, 95% design. So a DOT DSR is perhaps more developed than what we're seeing. Question of staff, is the commission required to act on something with a preferred alternative, or is it within our remit to approve it absent that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Commissioner Ron, through the chair, I think I understand the angle of the question that you're asking. The way the DSR is written is it has this preferred alternative, and the option is to either approve it. I suppose you could approve with some sort of condition that amended the preferred alternative, or somehow spoke to it. That's the only way I could see where it could be approved without it being acceptable of the preferred alternative, if that makes sense.
In part it does, and I'll turn back to the commission and further explain the angle, I think, is that there's, a design process, right, and there's environmental review, and there's this Muni DSR that we're acting on. We're only acting on one of 3 of those things. The other 2, I have concern about supporting a preferred alternative that may in fact not turn out to be the best option that's elucidated through those other processes, so the NEPA process or the DSR process. Maybe that's a non-issue, and we're not locking ourselves into the project moving forward on this trajectory. But if there's an option for the commission to act on this without doing so, then I would be interested in that.
Commissioner Krishna.
Thank you. In the interest of finding a productive solution forward, I would be open to approving this motion if we can amend the conditions of approval to address some of the concerns brought up during this hearing. I am willing to put a motion on the floor, but would also like to invite other commissioners who had more specific concerns to do so themselves. Otherwise, I will make an attempt to capture Commissioner Ron's points. All right, I will go ahead and try. I move to add a condition asking for a more detailed, what's it called? Alternatives evaluation matrix, or an annotated alternatives evaluation matrix, providing information about the environmental impacts, thank you. Safety, cost, and access, as well as, yeah, let's stop there.
Does that fairly describe your motion, Commissioner Krishna?
It does. I'm open to discussion if I missed anything.
Okay, I don't see any comments. Commissioner Krishna, thank you for your motion. It looks like the phrasing was implicitly accepted, or at least not objected to by the commission. Your motion is seconded by Commissioner Ron. Would you like to speak further to your motion, Commissioner Krishna?
Yes, I think I'd like to find a path forward so that the items identified here tonight as being potentially lacking are addressed further in the process and don't stay here with us, but are carried forward and are seen by the UDC and other bodies who might approve future iterations of this design.
Commissioner Ron, I see you tapping your pen. I don't know if you're planning to, Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Krishna, thank you for stepping up, and other commissioners that helped with that language. I do find it acceptable and beneficial. My concern is that while it addresses my interests in those areas that I currently see lacking, do we also perhaps need to look at the engagement with the public? And Commissioner Krishna, I'll turn back to you. I feel like you've addressed my concerns, but were there some of yours that still remain in terms of how this is communicated in terms of direct engagement with the public?
Commissioner Krishna.
I think that might be a little bit beyond the scope of this commission, unfortunately. I think that, you know, going forward, DOT and the Girdwood community and other stakeholders will have to reach agreement, or future bodies approving this will hear about it. So I think that all we can do at this commission's level is to put forward the information that we feel like is lacking and leave the public and other decision-making bodies to work from that.
Okay, seeing no one further in the queue, we'll go ahead and call a vote on Commissioner Krishna's motion to amend.
Ms. Eber?
Yes.
Thank you.
The 7 votes in favor, that motion passes. Brings us back to our main motion. And I don't see anyone else in the queue here either. Go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Eber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Six votes in favor, that motion passes. Okay, that's the last item on our agenda, which brings us to just looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Poulos, seconded by Commissioner Ron. Seeing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.